What makes an Elder Scrolls game great? Why is the series so beloved, and how has a game garnered so much hype when this is all we've seen? There are a lot of things that Elder Scrolls games do right, and also there's a lot they do wrong. But without question, one of the greatest parts of the series, and aspects that keeps people coming back year after year, is the world building. The places we explore, the civilizations and towns we learn about, and the adventures we go on in a mysterious and new land filled to the brim with lore and an interesting backstory. And central to this experience in each of the Elder Scrolls games is the land of Tamriel in which we inhabit. We have been to the mysterious and ominous lands of Morrowind, the green pastures of Cyrodiil, and most recently the frozen tundra of Skyrim. So now the question begs, where will we go next? What unexplored region of Tamriel is best suited for an Elder Scrolls 6 title? And what does each zone of Tamriel have to offer for the next installment in such a coveted series? This is the current best guess at what the planet of Nirn looks like. For those of you that don't know, don't worry, I didn't either. Nirn is the planet on which the Elder Scrolls games take place, and Nirn resides within the mortal plane of Mundus, which is actually just a part of a lot of other divine planes, but we won't get into that here. On the planet of Nirn, there are many different landmasses and locations. We have Yokuda, where the Redguards hail from, Aldmeris, the land of the elves, at Mora, where the certain human tribes stem from, like the Nords. And then there is the distant land of Akavir, where it's basically just a giant degenerate zoo with lizard, monkey, and tiger people. And yes, you heard me right, tiger people. And while all these lands have brief tales of lore in the Elder Scrolls, the landmass we most certainly care about the most is Tamriel, as this is where all of the mainline games take place. Here's a more detailed view of Tamriel and its 9 major locations. You probably recognize a few of these. But some that may be quite new to you as well. So then, where will the Elder Scrolls 6 likely be set? And where do I think the best setting is for the next game and why? Well, first of all, let's rule out some of the regions Elder Scrolls 6 very likely won't be set in. We can immediately rule out regions that are used in the most recent iterations of the series, that being Elder Scrolls 3 through 5. That means Morrowind, Skyrim, and Cyrodiil, the Land of Oblivion, are off the table. Each of these zones was the major area of one of the modern-day Elder Scrolls games, meaning it is very unlikely we go back to them for a new flagship title anytime soon. Elder Scrolls 2 did take place in Daggerfall in the southern edge of High Rock, and Elder Scrolls 1 Arena encompassed the entire map, but both of these games are now archaic by today's standards, and I don't think people would mind going back to these locations when the last time they saw them, they looked like this. So then, that leaves us with 6 regions that Elder Scrolls 6 could potentially be set in, each with their very own distinct geography, fauna, flora, and cultures. And since we know so little about the game so far, it truly is up in the air where the next game in the series could be. However, based on the trailer and some recent leaks, we can make some very educated guesses. But before we do that, let's look through each of these 6 regions and see what they have to offer, and talk about why I think an Elder Scrolls game in each of them is likely or not so much. First up, we have the Somerset Isles. Located at the southwestern corner of Tamriel, the Somerset Isles lie home to the Altmer, commonly referred to as High Elves, and this is the main concentration of Elven people, otherwise known as Mer, on the continent. This land is originally thought to be the landing spot of the Aldmer, an original ancient elven race, and their descendants, the Altmer, now rule the land and are known for their high intelligence and proficiency in magic. These traits have led the Altmer to develop giant renowned structures that show off the prowess of their kingdom. Most notably, their capital Alinor has been described as being made from glass and insect wings with buildings that reach the sky. This would certainly be one of the most unique places we have ever visited in an Elder Scrolls game, as the entire body mass is surrounded by water and flora and fauna is quite unique here. Somerset is known for its beautiful cherry blossom trees that are mainly pink and white, and a vast red and purple maple tree, along with gringo, sea grapes, spruce, and mangrove plants. There are also a large selection of smaller plants in the region, including blue and purple wisteria, yellow oleandre, pureroot, and glasswort. The plant life is very colorful and varied, and this extends to the wildlife as well. As on Somerset, you will see many notable creatures like griffins, indrix, which are deer-like monsters, and canna, the native bird of the Isles. The lands of Somerset are mostly overcome with a warm climate, colorful forests, idyllic meadows, and craggy mountains, with most of the south and the center of the island containing mountains, the tallest of which is Ettenir, in the north, which houses the capital of Alinor. The sea beds are ridden with coral and teeming with life, and much of the region's trade relies on the unique flora and fauna, which is all very colorful. It is not all sunshine and rainbows though, as lots of the older ruling class are xenophobic, and only recently with the new generations have they become more accepting of outsiders. In general, Somerset would be a very interesting and albeit very unique experience for an Elder Scrolls game. The land is very affluent in nature and has a lot to offer in terms of lore for the foundations of the Mer and their people, as well as the exploration of new cultures and geography. Next up, we have the Black Marsh. In many ways, it is the antithesis of what the Somerset Isles is. Also known as Argonia, the land of the Argonians, the Black Marsh is full of dark swamplands and tropical forests with overgrown fauna teeming with poisonous plants and violent predators. The land used to be much bigger, but long ago it was swallowed by the sea, a la Atlantis, and today we only see what remains of the region. The original inhabitants are the Hiss, or giant talking trees, and they have a sort of tenuous relationship with the Argonians going back over hundreds of years. The land also sports lots of ancient shrines and nods to a bygone civilization that disappeared in an event known as Duskfall long ago. In other words, this region actually has a ton of interesting and engaging backstory with the sinking of the region, the Great Duskfall, and the relationship with some of the oldest creatures in Tamriel. But it is not all cool, as the Black Marsh is probably the most dangerous region in all of Tamriel, as it is host to fringe spots of thieves, pirates, murderers, and Daedric worship. In fact, the societies of the Black Marsh were originally decimated in the Duskfall due to their worship of the Daedric prince Sithis the Destroyer. The Argonians make up a majority of the population and live in the waterways and swamps of the southern interior. On top of this, the dark and swampy natures of the land means that almost no roads are kept in good condition, making trading for food and materials very hard. Instead, the main method of travel is by boat in the waterways. The towns are scattered throughout and are as beautiful as they are scary, enveloped by the darkness of the swamps and trees and surrounded by criminal gangs, but wholly unique to all of Tamriel. The region actually kind of reminds me of Riften in Skyrim, but much bigger and much, much more dangerous. And on top of this, the Black Marsh sports some of the most intimidating creatures in all of Tamriel as well, including giant lizards, crocodiles, feathered serpents, hackwings, flesh flies, and werelions. What the hell is this? Speaking of giant feline creatures though, let's move on to our next region, Elsewhere. Elsewhere is the land of the feline race Khajiit, and has two major regions, the savanna badlands and dry plains to the north, and the jungle and rainforest to the south. On top of this land is made up of 16 different kingdoms of warring Khajiit tribes, who, after a lot of battles, combined into two, Anquina in the north and Palatine in the south. These two factions had a brief stint of joining together as well into the Elsewhere Confederacy, but once again in recent times have split back apart, dividing the region in two. The northern area is known mostly for its ruthless warrior culture, while the south is obsessed with affluency and luxury. Similar to Skyrim as well, the region has been host to a variety of dragon attacks and assaults, but this is made up for with their production of moon sugar, which is one of the main exports of the region and attributes a lot to the South's wealth. Moon sugar is mainly used in cooking and magic, as well as a favorite of those who want to get high, and is a small white crystal refined from some cane grasses on the coast. Not a ton is known about this region though overall, which is true for a lot of the southern portion of Tamriel. But the travelers coming here have noted that the land is wrought with a lot of variety and intrigue, and the diversity in the land would certainly make for a cool spot in a future Elder Scrolls game. Right next door to Elsewhere though, we have another interesting region, Valenwood. Home of the Wood Elves, also called the Bosmer, and descendants of the Altmeri of the Somerset Isles, Valenwood is known for its densely forested, subtropical region with a sea of endless green, a maze of foliage with half-hidden cities growing like blooms from a flower. Valenwood is home to many gigantic trees that reach the sky, and this is actually where the majority of Bosmer cities are built. Most notably the Bosmer capital that sits in a mile-high tree called the Fallen City. The entire region is made up of these tall trees and jungles, though it does have an extreme diverse cast of creatures and plants to discover. This includes the likes of centaurs, satyrs, minotaurs, giants, basilisks, fairy folk, hydra, and monkeys. And this extends into the culture and history of Valenwood as well, as the land is littered with hidden shrines to the Iliad, the first race to establish a home in Tamriel, and thus gives the region a lot of potential to reveal secrets of its long-forgotten past. Overall though, Valenwood is an awesome and interesting region, and while it does lack some diversity seen in the other areas of Tamriel, it certainly could make up for that with how interesting a set of cast of characters and monsters you could find in the forest. Next up though, let's turn to a region very much unlike Valenwood, Hammerfell. Hammerfell, also known as Heath, Deathland, or Valenfell, lies to the west of both Cyrodiil and Skyrim and borders both. It is mainly inhabited by the Red Guards, as they first immigrated to Tamriel from their homeland Yakuta to the west. And the Red Guards are known for their love of adventure and seafare, well versed in the trades of being sailors and mercenaries. And this is carried over into the entire culture of Hammerfell, which is littered with many nomadic tribes and bands of gangs in its center. And while Hammerfell is quite a large province, a majority of the populations do live on the coast, where fertile grasslands and miles of ocean with extravagant port cities can be found. More inland, the region is characterized by a giant and sparsely populated, desolate desert, with a couple poor farmers and beast herders seen throughout. But that is not all Hammerfell has to offer, as it is one of the most diverse regions in all of Tamriel. To the northeast, you can find the Iliac Bay, which is home to the tropical Banthan jungle, and just to the east of that, the Dragontail Mountains, which lies home to many orcish tribes. So while a large majority of Hammerfell is made up of the central and enormous desert lands it's been characterized by, that throw homage to the Middle East in our world, it has many different types of locations to visit and explore. The Redguard and Hammerfell also bear a similar resemblance to the Altmer and Somerset Isles, as their old leaders, called the Crowns, who descended from the Yakutan nobility, hate outsiders, while the forebears, or the descendants of the Yakutan military class, are much more open to incoming immigrants, which have increased in recent years. Because of the diversity in Hammerfell, the variety of flora and fauna is outstanding. But focusing on the desert regions, you can seem to expect a lot of things like palm trees and cactus, giant assassin beetles and scorpions, as well as jackals, harpies, giant wasps, and dune rippers. This is probably one of the best settings for the next Elder Scrolls game. But we'll dive right into that right after our next and last area. Last but not least, High Rock sits at the northwestern tip of Tamriel and borders on Hammerfell and Skyrim. The land is mostly made up of Bretons, as well as a good amount of orcs found at their city of Orsinium in the northern mountain ranges. High Rock is mostly comprised of rugged highlands and many strongholds and isolated valley settlements, but overall the region is quite diverse, ranging from green forests to badlands to snowy mountain caps near Skyrim. Like Hammerfell, the region has a lot to offer, including interesting buildings and lore like the Adamantine Tower, the oldest building in all of Tamriel, belonging to the ancient Aldmere race, and the Doomcrag, a massive Iliac tower that was destroyed in the distant past. The region is made up of 5 different Breton kingdoms that are not at full war or at full peace, instead bickering between one another as of late. And this could lead to a lot of interesting political intrigue in a potential Elder Scrolls 6, similar to the warring factions in Skyrim. The architecture of the region is also very similar to Skyrim, as there are a lot of stone strong walls and towers with spires, one of the most traditionally medieval-looking regions in all of Tamriel. High Rock is also mostly known for its mild climate and dry regions of crooked trees and faded grass near mountain valleys. And many well-known creatures like wolves, bears, harpies, spriggans, and nereids reside in these lands. This is another region that shows an extremely high potential for being the next setting for the upcoming Elder Scrolls game. And I think it's due time we finally talk about which region I think would be the best and why. Overall, I think a lot of these zones in Tamriel have a lot of potential. And funnily enough, learning about the lore of these provinces has given me a much greater appreciation for the previous games in the series as well. But based on the little amount of evidence we do have, and a better understanding of Tamriel as a whole, we can narrow down our search of what would be the best zone for the new Elder Scrolls game, and what is most likely to be chosen. First off, we can very likely rule out Black Marsh. The darker and super gritty tone of the zone seems like it would be out of place in a newer style Bethesda game, especially one targeted at a mainline audience. And I think it would be hard to truly capture the essence of the zone without creating a setting that has much less mass appeal. A zone full of dark and desolate swamps, conniving thieves, and murderous bands of gangs would be extremely interesting, but I think it would be better suited as a spin-off game. Now that Microsoft owns Bethesda and their IP, they could potentially have another studio, say like Arcane, make an immersive sim-style game, where you play as an Argonian agent in Black Marsh, uncovering secrets of the land as you go on assassination missions a la Discord. And I think this would work much better for the region. While this is unlikely to happen, I think it's about as unlikely as Black Marsh being the setting of the next game, as it's simply too dark of a tone to risk on such a big game that's been kind of hyped up for years now. Next up, I think we can quite clearly also rule out Elsewhere and Valenwood as well. The geography in both of these regions is opposite of what we have seen in the one trailer so far, but even ignoring that, the regions are much more one-dimensional than other potential spots on our list. Valenwood, for instance, is largely just one giant forest, which is honestly really awesome, but I imagine the developers would want to tackle a region that gives them more creative freedom to create a variety of areas, just like they have done in previous Elder Scrolls titles. The dusty badlands of Elsewhere and its rainforest to the south would be interesting, but once again, a setting like this could be captured in a zone like Hammerfell, which is similar but has even more zones of interest to go check out. On top of this, the provinces of Valenwood and Elsewhere and the Black Marsh are more homogeneous than some other zones, meaning the populations would likely be less diverse and thus potentially less interesting, meaning setting a game in these areas could be served better elsewhere. Speaking of homogeneous though, the next zone I think Elder Scrolls 6 will likely not be set in is the Somerset Isles. Being the land of the elves, the zone would certainly be very interesting to explore, but once again, it does not match any of the geography of what we have seen so far, and also more homogeneous than say Hammerfell or High Rock, meaning in theory it would have less diversity and less gameplay experience. The zone seems like it would be better suited once again for a DLC or a spin-off game, where you can sail into the land of the High Elves and discover their secrets on a coastal city with skyscrapers made of glass. It would be an awesome zone to learn more about the origins of the elves in Tamriel, but I also think with current technology, you just couldn't do the zone true justice. Similar to how you couldn't do true justice to Valenwood and a dense rainforest or the lands of Elsewhere. These zones are better suited for spin-off games, DLC, and future content, in my opinion. So then we are left with two zones that show the most potential as the next location for Elder Scrolls 6, Hammerfell and High Rock. Both of these zones are areas that highly resemble what we've seen in Elder Scrolls 6 trailers already, and both have a lot of variety in geography and culture to keep players interested. For instance, in the trailer for Elder Scrolls 6, we can see that the region could potentially be the Dragontail Mountains, which border on both High Rock and Hammerfell. On top of this, these zones most closely resemble the two Elder Scrolls games that have come before them, Oblivion and Skyrim. Not only do the zones border on each of these territories, but the actual cultures and cities seem the most similar. High Rock, for instance, has its Skyrim-like stone structures for buildings, and both regions are wrought with mountainous terrain to the northeast. Either of these zones could offer a huge variety in gameplay and areas to explore, whether that be the desolate desert in the center of Hammerfell or the lush trading port cities in the south of each respective zone. On top of this, there are a lot of diverse cultures to explore with and talk to, and many kingdoms to negotiate with in each of the regions. This would mean either zone could lend itself to a lot more political intrigue and dialogue and more thought-provoking missions that would have an effect on the world around them, a progression of what Skyrim attempted to do quite poorly. In High Rock, we could venture forth to the oldest building in all of Tamriel, or the Orcs' main city. In Hammerfell, we could discover hidden dungeons beneath the sands and climb the hills of the Dragontail Mountains to the north, only to bask in the sun of the tropical oasis of the port cities in the south. Both of these regions are absolutely filled to the brim with great lore and locations, new monsters and people to meet, but all while having the same familiarity we have grown accustomed to in recent Elder Scrolls games, that being Skyrim and Oblivion. I also see a lot of potential for new gameplay mechanics, for instance, potentially boat travel. Both regions have great spots we could potentially travel over by boat, and this would add just another dimension to the gameplay. On top of this too, since they both border on recent game locations, we could get a lot of lore about characters we have met and talked to in Skyrim and Oblivion, as they're right next to us. This leads me to think that Hammerfell is the most likely choice for Elder Scrolls 6, as it really hits on everything we would want in the new game. It borders on previous zones for the continuation of lore, it has a large and diverse geography and set of cultures, and it would add something to Elder Scrolls, that being a giant large desert, something we have just never seen before. And with the recent leaks and trademarks pointing to the Elder Scrolls 6 being called Redfall, I think Hammerfell would be a perfect fit, being that it is the land of the Red Guard. If I had to garner a guess based on all my research of Tamriel and the trailers we have seen, as well as any leaks that have been made public, I would guess Elder Scrolls 6 is either set in Hammerfell or Hammerfell and some parts of High Rock, with a smaller chance of it just being High Rock. Not only are these zones some of the most likely based on what we've seen, but they also offer a lot in terms of lore, world building, new gameplay mechanics, and a diverse landscape with interesting characters we may already know potentially from older games. And while truly any of the regions we have talked about today could offer an amazing experience for an Elder Scrolls game, Hammerfell and High Rock are simply the most obvious choices, and would be the easiest to do justice in a new amazing game. My ideal hope would be that Elder Scrolls 6 encompasses the entirety of both High Rock and Hammerfell, letting us journey from the sifting sands of Hammerfell all the way to the Adamantine Tower in the corner of High Rock. This sort of setting would offer the player every sort of environment they can think of, and a lot of content to explore. And considering Todd Howard did mention that the game needs to last for at least a decade, a new Elder Scrolls of that size seems like it could be in order. And even more than that, since there is such a big break between Elder Scrolls games every decade, I hope that Bethesda's newfound manpower and budget under the Microsoft banner will allow them to potentially let other studios make spin-off games in the other regions we have talked about today. A potential Obsidian game in the Somerset Isles, or an Arcane game in Black Marsh could be stunning and only add to the great legacy of Elder Scrolls. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate you taking your time to support me, and it helps me out a lot, and I hope you found this video interesting as it's a look into Elder Scrolls and the way Elder Scrolls 6 really could come to fruition. Let me know down in the comments where you guys think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to take place and where you would love to see the series go next and what regions really interest you the most and why. And as always, thanks again for watching, guys. I really do appreciate the support. And if you want to support me further, go check me out at twitch.tv/FranklyGaming and feel free to talk to me about ideas you'd like to see in future videos about Elder Scrolls and really just anything in gaming in general. And as always, I'll see you next time.